Join me today to talk about the heyday of Mattel and Intellivision, Blue Sky Ranger, and President of Intellivision Productions, Keith Robinson. Keith, it's so great to have you on the Screensavers. Let's see his shirt.
There we go.
Who is that? That's an Intellivision character, right? What is that?
That's one of our running men. This one's particularly from football. You can tell it's football because he has some pixels for a helmet. If there was a pixel missing, there, it would be a baseball cap. And if there were no pixel there, then he would have no cap, and then he'd be a soccer player. So.
That's basically
it. Yeah, so one pixel at a time.
This is 881.
1980.
1980.
1980.
And this is, I mean, we're talking the very earliest days of computer technology coming into the home. I mean, and this was sold for $300.
$300.
And what did we get for $300?
Well, this fine machine, it actually has, it's about 5.
The game
on? Time's out.
Oh, good. All right.
We're automatic screensaver. It's built in back then. High technology. Yeah, the actual about 5K ROM. Built in, and about 1K of RAM. And then you had your cartridges, which then provided you about 4K of game.
But you only had 1K of RAM, so I'm not loading the game into the RAM. It's running out of the cartridge, out of the ROM.
Yes, it's accessible
on a 16-bit
processor, the General Instrument 1610 processor, running at about 1 megahertz. It's zipping right along there.
And now, was Intellivision a separate company that Mattel bought, or was this a Mattel?
No, Mattel created it. It was Mattel Toys created it specifically to go against Atari.
Now, why'd they call you guys, the programmers, the Blue Sky Rangers?
Well, they called us that. Actually, they didn't want to call us anything. At the time, there was so much fighting going on between the companies because it wasn't
Atari was so dominant.
There was Atari, there was Intellivision, but then Activision came up, Magic came up, and then Coleco, and everybody was coming up to compete in the video game market. It was a huge frenzy, 1981, 82. So they tried to keep us secret. They didn't want anyone to know who we were for fear that we would get the phone call from Activision and say, "Psst, yeah, let's go. Exactly.
Wow.
And people were getting big money. And people were I think that at the time, if you sold one of your phone books, one of the internal Intellivision phone books was like $500.
Just because they could get the names and phone numbers.
Yeah.
I remember those days. I lived in Silicon Valley. I had friends who worked at Atari who were, and by the way, they were incredibly arrogant. I mean, these guys, we are masters of the universe. We are kings of the world.
People come right out of college. We hired 18-year-olds, 19-year-olds working at Mattel, and suddenly they are doing programming that's on the cover of Time magazine, that's stock, it's a billion-dollar industry, stock prices are going, with what these 20-year-olds are doing, staying up all night, drinking Coke and, trying to get these programs going.
And how old were you? You were about that age, yeah?
I was one of the older ones. I was 25, 26 at the time.
But coming out of college, or did you have another job?
I actually had gone to one other job before that. I worked in movie special effects before I went into Mattel.
So you were like
I started with that.
The wizard, the wise
Yeah, in fact,
guy.
actually, that's what happened is through working with special effects, I got introduced to people who were making the movie Tron. And then I went over to Mattel, and they were making games based on the movie Tron. So
that was your first game, was Tron?
Yes, Tron Solar Sailor.
And then you were the production director.
I was then promoted to a manager, so I was essentially a producer of the game Shark Shark.
Shark Shark. Well, who can forget? Well, this is the amazing thing. This stuff lives on. I mean, this isn't like from your personal collection. There are user groups. There is websites. You can even play it on other devices, and that's what we're going to talk about in just a little bit. Before we go to that, we're going to take a break. What happened to Intellivision?
Well, the entire industry in 1983 had a huge crash.
Oh,
you had the
Atari was burying cartridges in landfill. They were bulldozing cartridges.
Yeah, what happened was there was just so much supply got in. So many companies got in. It's not like today. Today, if you want to make a cartridge or if you want to make a disc for the PlayStation, if you want to make something for Nintendo, you have to license to them, and they check the quality. Back then, anybody who had a computer, who had a ROM burner, could go into business and start making these things. Mattel didn't get any money from anybody else who sold an Intellivision cartridge. Atari didn't get from Activision, whatever.
The business
learned. So much in there that it just collapsed the entire industry. But Intellivision lived on. We were the only cartridge-based system that kept going after 1984. We continued to create new games to 1990. Mattel sold the company to somebody else who kept the company going.